Thank you so much for taking the time for this interview. Why don't we start with your recent book, Excellent Advice for Living? From the preface of the book, I could see it started as advice you wrote down for your adult children. Obviously, this is very heartfelt, valuable life lessons, but young adults sometimes seem to be very hard audience for such lessons.
Well, that's the ironic part is that I never gave them very much advice.
Right.
I, in fact, the reason why I wrote it down was because I was not giving them advice. And after the book was done, I gave it to them, of course. And the whole purpose was, there were things I wished I'd learned when I heard when I was their age. And I said, "What do you think?" And they said, "Well, you never did tell us that, but you acted it out. And we learned it that way." And I thought that was a great success. That I think it is much more powerful if you can behave your advice rather than speak your advice. Because as you say, kids tend not to pay attention to what you say. They pay a lot of attention to what you do. Well, I think the reason why it's worth writing it down for myself is that it is good to have something that you can repeat to yourself. They're reminders.
Mhm.
I think of these as reminders. And so these are things that you can remind yourself that maybe you did see it from your parents or from someone else, but having it in a kind of a little tweetable, repeatable, mnemonic proverb is handy and helpful. And so I think there was an advantage to trying to say it. And I wished I had said them earlier. That was the honest truth.
Also, over the last few days, I read your comments, your speech at the conference for
Oh,
ESG. I would be very interested in learning about your views, especially given the latest advances in generative AI, which is the talk of everybody all over the world right now.
yeah.
So there were all these
Um,
open letters signed by top
yeah.
scientists and business leaders. What do you think about these comments about the doom prediction about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
attacks on human society?
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk. Just yesterday, I think the leaders had their AI summit at Congress, closed doors.
Mhm.
Um, the doomers are just misguided.
I see.
And there are a lot of reasons why I think, and I've been trying to figure out where their mistake is, and I think the most fundamental one is that they overestimate the power of intelligence. These are a lot of guys who like to think, and they think that thinking is the most important thing in the world. And they think that if you have intelligence, it trumps everything else. And we know that's not true. We know it's not the smartest person in the world to do the most things or make the most things happen. We know that the smartest companies aren't necessarily the best companies. It takes many more virtues, many more qualities to make something happen: enthusiasm, perseverance, imagination, all these other things. And so the mistake, I think, is in thinking that if you put Einstein and a tiger in a cage, the Einstein will win because he's
Is it
so much.
Is it because the intelligence that we are seeing from generative AI right now or in the near future, it hasn't been really connected with actual productivity, with actual machines and tools, or
Right.
is there something more to it?
No, it's that bare intelligence is not very useful for making things happen in the world. That you could have a black box, it could be the smartest thing, but that black box has to be connected to the real world and affect changes and do things and accomplish things. And so um, you need more qualities other than intelligence to achieve things. But they are imagining that they have a black box that has super intelligence and therefore can conquer the world. And that's where the doomers come in. They're saying, if it's smart enough, it'll just figure everything out and it'll just take over. Well, you can't really take over just from intelligence. That's the one mistake. The second mistake is there's this idea that we don't have time to tame it or adjust it because it is on some exponential curve. There is no exponential curve for the rate of increase of intelligence. In fact, it's the opposite. We have an increased usage of resources to produce a mild increase in abilities. The abilities are not increasing exponentially.
Right. And they are consuming a lot of resources. They're running out of digitized human knowledge very soon.
Right, exactly. And so they have this exponential appetite for the resources, producing just a mild little increase in results. And so there's not exponential increases in intelligence. And so there's a whole bunch of reasons why the doomers are just I can't say that it's impossible that the AIs could take over, but the probability is so small that it's not worth making policy about. I have friends who are interested in deflecting asteroids. And so there's a small group of people that are there, and they are concerned about this very, very low probability but high impact result of an asteroid hitting the Earth. So there is some chance the asteroids could hit Earth, but we don't want to make policies based on national policies based around that very small probability. And the same thing with the AI apocalypse.
This global race right now to regulate AI, you don't think that's really
Yeah.
necessary? Or what about in the future? When would you think would be appropriate time for us to worry about it?
When there was some actual evidence of something to worry about. Let's take unemployment right now. So people seem to be very worried about the unemployment aspect. I made a challenge for anybody to bring before me the name of a real person that's lost their job because of, say, generative AI or large language model. Nobody, zero. Okay. If we started to have lots and lots and lots and lots of people losing jobs, then we could worry about unemployment. But right now, this is an imaginary third person. It's an imaginary worry. There's just no evidence at all of anything remotely like unemployment.
But a lot of scenarios seem to be emerging right now in many industries where a kind of hybrid human working with AI or human assisted by AI is making changes to a lot of current business models or how we work.
Right.
Do you think that
And I think
actually
that's 100%. I think that's 100% correct. That's the right stance. Is that we have the centaur. We call it the centaur, the human plus the AI. I call it plus one. And the role of the AI is as intern, assistant, co-pilot, teacher, coach, all those things, a partner. So that is the thing. And so I would say you're not going to lose your job, but you're going to lose your job description.
Another key issue that you were talking about actually at the conference was ESG. ESG is also actually one of the hottest debated issues or concepts globally right now. In the US, it's kind of caught on this stigma, became a partisan point of conflict.
Right.
Uh, what do you think about the future of ESG in the West or in the US? Is it going to be doomed because of politics?
So I have no idea whether the technical term will survive. I have no idea whether there's a political agenda on it. But my point that I was trying to make in my speech was that ESG is more than just a slogan, more than just a policy, and more than just an investment strategy. It actually was a system, and that your own business, your own success is more and more tied to the success of that external system that you have to invest into it and feed it as much as your own internal system. And so that's going to be increasingly truer and truer. So in that sense, no, it's not going away anywhere. It's going to continue to become a more important aspect of what you're doing. And we see that anybody who's working on a platform, like if you're selling an app, you have to encourage the platform to succeed, because your app not going to succeed unless the platform succeeds. And so that's what it is. We're entering in a kind of a platform world where there's a new platform, which is this humongous global internet computer thing, and you want it to be secure, you want it to be reliable, you want it to be politically neutral if possible. And so this becomes more and more important. So whether you want to call it ESG or not, I'm agnostic on that, but that's what it is. That external platform thing becomes very important for us to tend and invest in and make it succeed.
But at the same time, not only is ESG troubled by domestic politics in
Yeah.
the United States, for example, it's also the concept itself seemed to be diverging between East and West with ideological differences and decoupling, de-risking going on.
Yeah, yeah.
In China, for example, it may start to mean different things than what it means in the West. This platform, do you think it's in danger of being split into multiple ESG offshoots?
Yeah. Despite this decoupling, no matter how far that actually goes, I don't think it's going to slow down the globalization. The actual globalization is coming about. And so uh and so in that sense, yeah, I think temporarily there might be, trying to continue on its kind of own path in many ways. We'll see how far that can actually continue going. I I think that um, things like the environment actually are other ways in which that segmented thing simply doesn't work. And so, to the degree that it's working, requires overcoming some of those segregated ideas. And the US is playing in that too. So it's not just China's fault. So so my view of this is that it's an inevitable drift towards more and more globalization, and that that while it's a possible scenario that we have that kind of segregation, I think that ultimately it overcomes it. And so, what does that mean? What's the timing on that? I don't know, but the environment may be the one that actually forces the hand for that kind of cooperation. I mean, in some senses, we're kind of talking a little bit about global governance, which is this word that nobody in the US likes. The left hate the idea of global government. The right hates the idea of it. Nobody likes the idea, but that's basically what we're talking about. And so, whether it takes some kind of disaster to kind of provoke the increasing integration, I don't know. I hope not. But I think that that's where we're headed. That it looks to me the place that solves the most of the problems. As I said in the talk, you can't really have national security without global security, because security is always based on the weakest link. So, like, say, cybersecurity, you can't have you can't protect your own cyber infrastructure at the national level. It has to be done at the global level. It just doesn't work, because it's whatever. It's like having devices in your home. The device with the weakest security in your home is the level of security of your whole system. And so just see some other kinds of the mechanical chores of keeping this large system, global system going, I think are going to is the counterforce to this kind of inclination to segregate.
Also, back to your book of advice. So one editor to another, you also used to be
Oh,
an editor for Wired magazine. the media industry, we face some really hard questions these days. It seems every time there's a technological advance, we are right on the front line to be disrupted one way or another. And AI, of course, there's been a whole lot of very pessimistic views about how AI is going to finally disrupt or destroy the whole media industry. What would you say to, for example, in advice to someone like me still working as an editor in the media industry when we face younger people, when we have young joiners in the office? What do we tell them when we teach young students of media and journalism? What should we say about the future to them?
Well, some of my career advice to anybody, whether they're working in the media or not, is several things. One is I know this from when we were hiring at Wired. Um, we hired we didn't hire for we hired for aptitude and attitude and trained for skills
Mhm.
because we were making the very first websites. There wasn't a single person who graduated with the skills of making a website. Nobody knew how to make a website, so we had to hire people who were able to do that. So for me, the meta skill that you want to have is the skill of learning how to learn really quickly, learn how to adapt, learn how to cooperate, learn how to collaborate. And so for me, that's still the primary thing that I would tell a young person is hone your ability to learn, to adapt, to be flexible, to work together, and all those kind of classic um, virtues that we want in people to contribute. Because whatever skills you have or think you might need are probably unlikely, and they're going to be changing very, very quickly as AI, and we're going to discover together what those new skills are. And the second one that I try to be involved somewhere where there's not language and labels for what it is that you're doing. And that suggests that you're at the right frontier. It also means that there's less competition and there's more of a chance that you can be doing something that only you can do. And so, so editor is a kind of well occupied, very well developed niche, and there's only one editor in chief, and so you're unlikely ever to get there. You want to be aiming for something else. So things are changing. I believe that we're shifting from being people of the book, and now we're people of the screen. And text and everything else is undergoing tremendous change, and that they should be really flexible with the understanding that um, the very thing they're working on may have a new name.
Indeed, very excellent advice. Thank you so much for your time.